You know those moments in life where everything feels aligned? Not perfect, but steady. Predictable in a good way. That's where I was. We were weeks away from closing the quarter, and my department was on fire in the best way. Numbers. Climbing higher than we'd ever seen, clients happy, the team buzzing with energy. Every Monday morning meeting felt less like a dreaded ritual and more like a victory lap. I'd walk into the office early, coffee in hand, the steam curling up. Into the cold morning air as I pushed through the glass doors, the place would be almost empty, just the quiet hum of computers booting up. The faint whir of the printer, and that faint smell of burnt toast from someone's breakfast down the hall. I liked those early hours. They gave me time to just take it in. From my office window, I could see the reflection of the sunrise stretching across the building opposite ours. The golden light spilled over our floor, bouncing off the glass partitions, giving everything this surreal glow. I'd glance at the framed photo on my desk, my team standing together at last year's holiday party, all smiling. I'd smile. I had. It wasn't fake. I'd earned this. Or at least I thought I had. It hadn't been an easy year. There were moments when deadlines loomed so close they felt like they were breathing down my neck. Nights when I'd sit at home with my laptop, open until 2 a.m., eyes dry, neck stiff. But I believed in the team, and they believed in me. I didn't just manage people. I fought for them. When budgets were tight, I made sure my department got what it needed. When other managers cut corners, I stood my ground, and it worked. We didn't just hit our targets, we shattered them. Record profits. A team that actually liked coming into work. Supervisor who, at least on paper, seemed pleased. So as I sat there that morning, hands wrapped around my coffee mug, I wasn't thinking about politics or drama. I was thinking about how for once everything seemed under control. No fires to put out. No angry emails to draft. I even let myself daydream about what we might do with the extra budget next quarter. About how the bonus would help with the vacation I'd been putting off for years. I could already picture the sand under my feet, the sound of waves. If someone had tapped me on the shoulder right then and told me my entire world was about to turn upside down, I would have laughed. Not because I didn't believe bad things could happen, but because, in that moment, I honestly thought I was untouchable. That's the thing about the final stretch before the finish line. You don't always see the cliff just beyond. It was around 10:14 a.m. when it happened. I remember the time because I'd just taken a sip of my coffee, still warm but starting to lose that perfect heat. When my email notification pinged, subject line meeting, please confirm availability, no. Details, no agenda, no friendly hey or emoji, which was unusual because my supervisor, let's call him Craig, was a man who loved sprinkling in little winks and smiley faces like he thought they counted as personality. I stared at the email. For a moment, part of me shrugged it off. Maybe it was a routine check-in. We'd been riding high lately, but he wanted to talk about next quarter. But there was something about the tone, or maybe it was the lack of one. I typed back, a quick sure? What time? And within seconds, the reply came, now, no please, just now. That's when I felt it. The first small knot in my stomach. It wasn't panic, not yet. Just that subtle tightening you get when your instincts start whispering. Something's off. A few minutes later, I spotted him walking past my office. Normally, Craig had this exaggerated way of greeting people. Pointing finger guns, clapping someone on the shoulder, cracking some half-baked joke. This time, nothing. No glance in my direction, no smile. He just kept walking, head down, fast. The clock on my desk ticked louder than usual, each second dragging. I caught myself tapping my foot under the desk, my heel making a dull thud, thud, thud on the carpet. I tried to distract myself by skimming through a report, but the words blurred. My brain was busy building scenarios, maybe a last-minute client. Issue, maybe upper management wanted something by end of day, or maybe, no, don't go there still. I found myself straightening the papers on my desk. Adjusting my chair, little nervous habits I'd picked up over the years, the kind you don't notice until you're doing them. When I finally stood up to head to the meeting, the air in the hallway felt heavier. I could hear the faint hum of the HVAC, the tapping of someone's keyboard in the distance, but otherwise it was eerily quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like the walls are listening. I walked toward his office. I passed two coworkers talking in low voices by the copier. They stopped mid-sentence when I got close. I gave a small nod. They smiled back, polite, quick, almost guilty smiles. And suddenly, that knot in my stomach tightened. It's strange how, in moments like that, your body knows before your brain does. Craig's office door was half open when I got there. Looked up from his desk, smiled, but it wasn't his usual smile. This one was tight, almost rehearsed. "Hey, come on in," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. I sat down, the leather creaking under me. My eyes flicked to the blinds behind him, tilted just enough to let in strips of daylight that cut across the desk like sharp lines. I could see dust particles floating in the light, slow and aimless. "So," he began, leaning back in his chair. "How's everything going? How's the team holding up? Small talk?" I gave the usual update. Projects on track? Morale good? Record-breaking numbers still holding strong. My voice was steady, but something in me was hyper-aware. I noticed his hands, fingers tapping a slow rhythm on the desk. I noticed the faint smell of his cologne, the same one he always wore. Today it felt stronger, heavier, and then he stopped tapping. He leaned forward, his tone changed. "I'll get straight to it," he said. "We've decided to terminate your position, effective immediately." I blinked. I swear, for a few seconds, I didn't hear anything else. His voice was still moving, still forming words. But they were muffled, like I was underwater. "Poor teamwork," he said. Those two words snapped into focus. Poor teamwork. I must have looked at him like he'd just told me the sky was green. "I'm sorry, what?" I finally managed. Craig's expression didn't change. "We've had some concerns for a while now, about your ability to collaborate with others. At the broader organizational level. The kind of corporate jargon people use when they don't want to say anything real." My mind started firing in a dozen directions at once. "The department just posted core profits. We exceeded targets by almost 30%. You literally congratulated me in last quarter's review. The team likes working with me. I know they do." I wanted to say all of that, to throw the numbers on his desk and make him explain how poor teamwork fit anywhere in that story. But my mouth wouldn't cooperate. My hands were another story. I realized they were clenched so tightly in my lap that my nails were digging into my palms. Craig kept talking. Something about difficult decisions and moving in a new direction, but the words blurred again. Behind him, the blinds swayed slightly, probably from the air vent. The light shifted, casting moving shadows across the wall. I thought about my team, about the Monday mornings where we'd laugh over bad coffee, the late nights spent hitting impossible deadlines. I thought about the bonuses they'd be getting this quarter because of the work we all did together, and here I was, being told I didn't know how to work with people. It wasn't just unfair, it was absurd. When I finally found my voice again, all I could say was, "You can't be serious." He didn't flinch, which somehow made it worse. I don't even remember standing up. 1 second I was in Craig's office staring at those stupid blinds, and the next I was out in the hallway holding a thin folder he'd slid across the desk. My termination packet. Everything felt unreal. Not dramatic, not loud, just off. Like I'd stepped sideways into some parallel version of The Office, where nothing quite matched. The hallway seemed longer than usual. My footsteps sounded too heavy on the carpet, each one sinking in a little too much. Somewhere down the hall, the printer was spitting out paper. That faint smell of warm ink and fresh paper drifting into the air. People noticed me. Not all at once, but in that gradual way where heads turn, eyes flicker, and then almost in unison they look away. Someone by the break room gave me a small nod, their mouth parting like they might say something. But they didn't. Just turned back to the coffee machine and pressed the button. My eyes caught every detail I'd normally ignore, the way the flickering overhead light near accounting made the shadows stutter against the wall, the stack of unopened mail on the reception desk, one envelope half torn like someone got distracted mid-open. The air felt dry, my throat tighter. A few people were still buried in their screens, oblivious. I could see the glow of spreadsheets reflected in their glasses, hear the faint tap-tap of keyboards. It hit me then. Life in here was going to keep moving. Just without me. I passed by my office. My chair was still angled the way I'd left it, coffee mug sitting by the keyboard, steam gone now. I hesitated at the doorway, my hand resting on the frame. I thought about walking in, sitting down one last time, maybe even sending out a farewell email before Craig's version of the story got around. But my legs didn't move. Instead, I kept going. Past the row of empty chairs in the small conference area, chairs. It still had the faint impressions of people who'd been sitting there earlier. Past the window, where the same sunlight from this morning was now harsher, sharper, no longer warm, the whole walk felt like a slow pan in some indie film. Quiet. It's ordinary things, suddenly carrying the weight of an ending. And when I finally reached the elevator, I pressed the button and just waited. No one else around. The doors opened with a muted ding, and for the first time in years, I stepped inside without my badge clipped to my belt, feeling like it belonged there. By the time I reached my car, my phone was already buzzing at. First, I thought it was my bank or some random app notification. But when I glanced at the screen, I saw the names, people from the office. People who didn't normally text me during work hours unless something was wrong. The first one read, "What happened?" Then another, "Did you quit? Please tell me you didn't quit." And then they started stacking. Craig said, "You're gone. This is insane. We just broke the profit record. Are you okay?" I sat there in the driver's seat, phone in my hand, just staring at the notifications as they kept lighting up the screen. Each buzz felt like another, a reminder that the story was already spreading fast. I didn't reply. Not yet. Part of me didn't even know what to say. I was still trying to process the fact that I'd been fired for poor teamwork, while my department was practically carrying the company's quarterly results. But the messages kept coming. And mixed in with the confusion, a new tone started to creep in anger. This is BS. Everyone knows you're the only reason half the projects even get finished on time. Word is, he's replacing you with someone from his old company. A total buddy move. That one made me pause because it sounded believable. It's believable. The more I thought about it, the more pieces started to fit in a way I didn't like. Craig's sudden disinterest in team updates over the past month. It's the fact that he'd been spending more time in closed-door meetings with upper management. It's the way he'd been unusually quick to approve budget requests lately. Almost like he was clearing the deck for something. I leaned back in my seat and closed my eyes, listening to the muffled hum of traffic outside. Inside the office, I could imagine it. The whispered conversations by the water cooler. People lowering their voices as soon as someone else walked by. There's a certain energy in the air. When something big happens at work, not good big, gossip big, the kind of news that makes people check their phones under the table in meetings. And now I was that news. The disbelief was still there, but underneath it, something else was starting to take shape. A slow, steady burn in my chest. Not the kind that makes you lash out. The kind that makes you pay attention. Because if this was how it was going to go down, I wanted to know the real reason that night. I sat at my kitchen table, the only light coming from the laptop in front of me. Everything else was dark. The kind of quiet that makes you notice the hum of the fridge, the occasional tick of the wall clock. I'd been replaying the day in my head on a loop, trying to decide if I should even open the emails piling up in my inbox. Most were probably sympathy notes or confused questions I didn't have the energy to answer. Then I saw it. A message from Jenna, one of my senior analysts, someone I trusted completely. The subject line was simple. "You should see this." Hesitated before clicking. The email itself was short. "I don't know what's going on, but this doesn't add up. Check the attachments." There were 3 files. The first was a quarterly performance report. The second, A comparison of departmental KP is the third. An email chain. I opened the report first. There it was in black and white. Our department's numbers weren't just good. They were the best in the entire division. Highest client satisfaction scores, fastest project completion times, lowest overhead costs. I opened the KPI comparison next. The gap between us and the next best department was wide enough to drive. A truck through, and then I clicked the email chain. It started as a normal conversation between UNC's lead. It's Craig and upper management, status updates, budget approvals. But further down, a message caught my eye. We'll have the transition ready once the new hire starts. Removing my name from the equation should smooth the adjustment period. The date on that email was 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before my so-called poor teamwork evaluation. My jaw tightened. It was never about teamwork, never about performance. It was about making room for someone else. I stared at the glowing screen, my cursor hovering over the files like they might burn me. But instead of feeling crushed, I felt something else. It's a deliberate kind of energy settling in my chest. I'd been blindsided, humiliated, written off like I didn't matter. But now, I had proof. The fridge hummed in the background. Outside, a car passed by, its headlights flashing briefly through the blinds. I sat there still, my fingers lightly tapping the table. This wasn't over, not yet. By mid-morning the next day, it was clear my firing hadn't gone quietly. I woke up to a phone buzzing with messages, not just from friends in the office, but from people I barely knew in other departments. The tone had shifted. It wasn't confusion anymore. It was anger. Jenna had apparently shared those reports with a few trusted people. And the way offices always work, a few turned into everyone who matters in less than 24 hours. By 10 a.m., I started hearing about what was happening. The break room had turned into a war room. My team was gathered around the counter with their coffee cups, voices raised, trading ideas about what to do. Some were drafting emails to HR. Others were screenshotting the data before it could mysteriously disappear. In the background, someone kept pacing, phone to ear, speaking in clipped, deliberate sentences. I could almost see it, that tight, coiled energy that comes when a group decides enough is enough. By noon, formal complaints had been filed. More than one? More than 10? I heard one of the senior project managers had marched straight into HR and refused to leave until they took her statement. And then there was the meeting. Apparently, Craig had tried to address the situation in the conference room with a few key staff members. Word was, it hadn't gone well. Someone had actually slammed a folder down on the table. Another had walked out mid-sentence. The company's carefully polished image, the one they loved to brag about in recruitment ads, the one with all the smiling stock photo employees, was starting to crack. Outside HR's office, the hallway, was clogged with people waiting. The door kept opening and closing, each time revealing a flash of the HR manager's pale, tight face. Meanwhile, my phone was lighting up like a switchboard. They're furious. Craig's avoiding the break room. His upper management knows now, and they're not happy about how this looks. Sitting there at my kitchen table, coffee going cold, I felt something I hadn't felt since this whole thing started. Momentum. Not just my own, but something bigger. Something collective. I imagined Craig, pacing in his office, blinds closed, trying to figure out how to spin this. The thought made me almost smile, almost because now, the story wasn't just mine anymore, it was everyone's. It took them 3 days. 3 days of whispers turning into open conversations, the emails sent confidentially making their way to people who shouldn't have them, of HR's office looking like a revolving door. Then, on the morning of the 4th day, the official memo landed. In everyone's inbox, subject, organizational updated, was a masterpiece of corporate nothingness. The kind of letter that says a lot while meaning nothing at all. Words like realignment and strategic vision floated between stiff paragraphs. There was a vague nod to personnel changes and departmental restructuring, but not a single mention of my name. Instead, it focused on the future, the exciting new chapter and fresh perspectives that would drive our continued success. I read it twice, not because it was unclear, but because I couldn't decide whether to laugh or throw my coffee. It was damage control, pure and simple. A tidy little blanket thrown over a fire they didn't want anyone to see. But the problem was, people had already seen it. By noon, the memo was being passed around with sarcastic commentary in group chats. Someone had even redlined it, like a school paper, adding comments like translation, "We screwed up, and Craig's buddy is the fresh perspective." Then the real cracks started to show. An anonymous post appeared on an industry forum, detailing recent questionable leadership changes in our company, complete with performance charts that looked suspiciously like the ones Jenna had sent me. Someone else dropped a screenshot of the email chain, the one planning my removal weeks before my firing, by the end of the day. A small business news site had picked up the story. There it was, a headline in bold, my company's name next to words like favoritism and internal politics. The article was careful, citing sources familiar with the matter. But anyone on the inside knew exactly what it was about. I imagined the executive floor that afternoon, doors closing quietly, voices kept low, phones pressed to ears. Craig trying to keep his head down. PR drafting talking points they'd never admit were for this. The thing about a controlled message is that it only works if you're still in control. And from where I was sitting, sipping coffee at my kitchen counter, they weren't anymore. Truth had a way of bleeding out, and once it started, you couldn't push it back in. It didn't happen all at once. There was no dramatic announcement, no public shaming in the middle of the office. It's not how these things work. In corporate land, consequences are usually dressed in soft language and shuffled through back channels. But the signs were there first. Craig's name quietly disappeared from the leadership roster on the company's website. Then the weekly department head call went ahead without him, someone else leading in his place. No explanation given. By the end of the week, I got the call. Not from Craig, of course he wouldn't dare, but from someone in upper management I'd barely spoken to before. Their tone was careful, a little too warm, like they were speaking to a customer they didn't want to lose. They wanted to make things right. Those were the exact words. Apparently there were 3 options. 1, come back, but in a slightly different role to ensure the best alignment for everyone involved. Translation, they wanted me back, but not in a position where I could make Craig's replacement uncomfortable. 2, take a settlement, generous enough to get me to walk away quietly. 3, accept a public apology, internally and in writing. For my record, no job, just closure. I didn't answer right away. That night I stood by the open window in my apartment. The city stretched out below, lights blinking, traffic humming in the distance, a steady rhythm that made the chaos of the past 2 weeks feel small. I thought about pride, about the satisfaction of walking back in there and knowing everyone would see me. See the truth. And no, I'd been right. I also thought about the weight of staying in a place that had shown me exactly how disposable. The cool night air moved through the room, and I could hear faint music from a bar down the street. It was one of those moments where the noise of the world reminds you there's more out there than the 4 walls you've been trapped in. No matter which option I chose, it wouldn't erase what had happened. It wouldn't unring the bell. It could decide how I carried it forward. And for the first time since Craig slid that folder across the desk, I realized the ending didn't have to be theirs. It could be mine. It's strange how quickly something that once felt permanent can turn into just a memory. The office, the meetings, the endless email chains, they'd been such a huge part of my life. And now they existed only in the past tense. I used to imagine I'd miss it, the familiar routines, the team banter, the feeling of being in control of something that mattered. But standing here now, I realize I don't. I've had time to replay it all in my head, not with bitterness. That burns too much energy, but with a kind of clarity I didn't have before. I can see exactly where the cracks started. The small signs I ignored, the way professionalism is just a costume sometimes, hiding politics, favoritism, and personal agendas. And here's the truth. It didn't matter how good I was at my job. It didn't matter that my team was breaking records, or that I was hitting every target they threw at me. In the wrong hands, none of that is a shield. But here's the other truth. Being pushed out didn't erase what I built. It's the work still mattered. The people I fought for still remember. The wins are still real, even if they'll never put my name on them again. Today, the air feels different. I'm walking down a sunlit street, the kind where the light bounces off shop windows, and the pavement smells faintly warm. My briefcase feels lighter than it used to, maybe because I'm not carrying their expectations in it anymore. I pass a cafe and catch my reflection in the glass. No office badge clipped to my belt, no tense shoulders, just me. I don't look back toward the direction of the old building, not because I'm trying to prove a point, but because I genuinely don't need to. That chapter's closed. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not thinking about what I left behind. I'm thinking about what's next.